Module 2. Unit 1. Research Techniques. This module prepares you for research work as it concerns the library. Most students get confused on how to get started with their research. This module is to help you get started with your research by helping you identify the various information sources you can consult for your research. It also takes you through a step-by-step process of reviewing your literature. List of databases you can consult was provided. Connect with me via WhatsApp, +234 703 247 4726, to get more interesting videos. Please, to support our ministry, remember to like the video, and also find it in your heart to subscribe to our YouTube channel and then gently tap the bell to turn on the notification, so as not to miss out on the next videos. You may not have enough fund to buy or subscribe to all the books and journals needed for your research, but you can use Open Educational Resources, OER, which grant you free access to variety of quality books and journals. The links to major OER are provided in this module. Unit 1. Information Sources. Unit 2. Literature Review. Unit 3. Databases Contents. Unit 4. Open Educational Resources. Unit 1. Information Sources. Contents. 1.0. Introduction. 2.0. Intended Learning Outcomes, ELOS. 3.0. Main Content. 3.1. Primary Sources of Information. 3.2. Secondary Sources of Information. 3.3. Tertiary Sources of Information. 4.0. Conclusion. 1.0. Introduction. Information is important in all human activities. The term is difficult to define because it has several dimensions. It means many things to different people. According to dictionary.com, information is knowledge communicated or received concerning a fact or circumstance. Oxford Dictionary defined information as facts provided or learned about something or someone. It further defined information as data processed, stored, or transmitted by a computer. Information is being generated and transmitted by individuals on daily basis. Information seekers consult various sources to satisfy their information needs. There are basically three sources of information, namely, primary, secondary, and tertiary sources of information. The choice of the source to consult depends on the type of information sought. In this unit you will learn about the resources of the library, which are basically classified into three: primary sources of information, secondary sources of information, and tertiary sources of information. The knowledge of these sources will help you in your research work. 2.0. Intended Learning Outcomes, ELOS. By the end of this unit, you will be able to distinguish the type of sources of information provided by the library, demonstrate the skills of getting required information from the different sources of information, primary, secondary, and tertiary. 3.0. Main Content. 3.1. Types of information sources. Information is important in all human activities. The term is difficult to define because it has several dimensions. It means many things to different people. According to dictionary.com, information is knowledge communicated or received concerning a fact or circumstance. Oxford Dictionary defined information as facts provided or learned about something or someone. It further defined information as data processed, stored, or transmitted by a computer. Information is being generated and transmitted by individuals on daily basis. Information seekers consult various sources to satisfy their information needs. There are basically three sources of information, namely, primary, secondary, and tertiary sources of information. The choice of the source to consult depends on the type of information sought. 3.1.1. Primary Sources. Primary sources are original materials on which other sources of information are based. They report a discovery or share new information. First-hand accounts and information, to events, are presented in primary sources. Information is presented in its original form, void of various interpretation or evaluation, by various authors. Usually, research outcomes and results from original research work fall into this category. Primary sources are usually the first formal appearance of results, either in print or electronic format. Examples of primary sources of information are diaries, letters, print speeches, patents, photographs, newspaper articles, journal articles. Theses and dissertations, survey research, proceedings of meetings, conferences and symposia, original documents, birth certificates, wills, marriage licenses, trial transcripts, records of organizations, government agencies, treaties, annual reports, etc. Email communications, interviews, video recordings, audio recordings, websites, artifacts, for example, coins, plant specimens, fossils, furniture, tools, clothing, etc., works of art, architecture, literature, and music, for example, painting, sculptures, musical scores, buildings, novels, poems. 3.1.2 Secondary sources. Secondary sources of information are created from primary sources of information. The authors, creators, of secondary sources did not have first-hand experience of the event being researched. Secondary sources give accounts of facts by describing, analyzing, interpreting, evaluating, commenting or discussing evidence provided by primary sources. It is important to note that secondary sources are not evidence, but commentary on, and discussion of evidence. Examples of secondary sources of information include textbook, biographical works, commentaries, criticisms, dictionaries and histories. It is important to take note of how recent secondary sources of information are. 3.1.3 Tertiary sources. Tertiary sources of information act as pointers to primary and secondary sources. In fact, tertiary sources are 1. Works that list primary and secondary resources in a specific area. 2. Works which index, organize, and compile citations to secondary sources. Examples of tertiary sources include chronologies, bibliographies, indexes, encyclopedias, and directories. 4.0 Conclusion. All researchers have at their disposal the three basic information sources to satisfy their information needs. However, their choice of source depends on the type of information needed.